Right then. So, good evening, Sidney. Now, you're going to tell me first of all something about your parents. Let's start with your father.
Well, my father was born in a little village in Poland in 1875.
What did he?
The
When
fa-
did he come to this country?
Oh, when he was a very small boy, because he was educated here. And
He came with his parents.
he
then.
came with his parents and, in fact, quite a big family, as was common in those days.
Do you know the name of the village or whereabouts in Poland they came from?
Yes, I think it was called Mlawa, M-L-W-A. I wouldn't be sure. It's a little village, or it was in those days, a little village close to the German border. And consequently, my father was fairly fluent in German, as well as Yiddish, of course, which they all spoke in those days.
And what did he do when he came to this country?
Well, he was educated over here, and then he was apprenticed to a trade, and then he spent a lot of time in the retail tobacco trade. And then
Whereabouts did he live in England?
in North London, Stoke Newington.
And he met you. Could, Dr. Nelson, start identifying yourself as your details of your birth? Your full name was?
Oh dear.
Which?
This sounds as if it's quite a lengthy sort of analysis, but I must ask to be excused.
Do you re-summarise? Right, could I just have one of...
I'm past this sort of thing. Whilst I'm ready to answer the odd question for a moment or two, I'm not mentally fit to go through an hour-long analysis.
Could I just
So
ask
I
a few
must
quick
ask
questions?
to be excused.
Could I ask you a few quick questions, sir?
You ask me if you
Were you born in this country?
Yes.
Whereabouts? Whereabouts?
In Dulwich.
In Dulwich, yes. Where did you train as a doctor?
At University College and St Barnabas Hospital.
And where were you in practice? Was it this area?
Well, most of my professional life was spent here in Harrow. I came here in 1933 because I was qualified 10 years prior to that. I came here in 1933 and established myself in practice here. And over the course of time, because I've been practicing here since 1933, retired officially in 1981, and led a very, very busy professional life, as most doctors do. So apart from working in general practice, I was also an anaesthetist at the Harrow Consultant anaesthetist at the Harrow Hospital for 40 years, until such time as it was superseded by Norfolk, by which time I was past retiring age, and that was it with that. And so I had national health and private practice here. I had an army post during the war. I had a private practice from consulting rooms in Harley Street. I did a lot of domiciliary obstetrics, and it's been a pretty full life, and I've had very little time for much else. That's a thumbnail sketch. This, I think, covers everything of any consequence.
But could you say any thought about how medicine has changed since your early days?
Oh, indeed, it has changed largely.
Were you prescribing, making up your own medicines?
It has become now, what is the great change in medicine today is I think since my day, and I qualified in 1922, which goes back into history. So I've seen tremendous scientific advances in medicine, taking in, speaking of medicine, largely, not limited to medical matters, embracing all the sciences and all the progress has been made in further knowledge, specific knowledge of the treatment of disorders. And it has become now largely a technology
Yes.
rather than a clinical exercise. It is largely a technology.
But you going back to your early days in 1920s, I mean, how was you starting in general practice? And how was it different where you were,
Well,
for
it was
example?
in that difference in that way. That's all right. I mean, people haven't altered. People are people. Disease is disease.
Yeah.
But scientific knowledge, medicine and its allied sciences have progressed so largely that it is quite a different form of exercise. Whereas in my early days, in 1922 and so on, one's approach to the patient was a purely clinical one. You haven't got such things as electrocardiogram and close blood chemistry examinations and all kinds of manoeuvres that are conducted today, which I won't mention. It was a clinical exercise. You just had your
House of observation?
powers of observation, your examination, power of examination, your technique in the examination. And of course, the great function of the doctor, in my opinion, the most important function, is the recognition of disease or disorder with minimal symptoms and signs. The case then goes on to a consultant who has all the technology available for further investigation. But the doctor who meets the patient in the front line, the first approach, the symptoms can be of no great, apparently of no great consequence. The physical signs might be very slight and difficult to elicit, but nevertheless that's the core of it, in my opinion. After that, it's technology.
Yeah. Would you say your practice here, I suppose, in Harrow was a fairly ordinary cross-section of people? Was it nothing special
Yes,
about
Harrow, but I
patients?
came here in 1933. Harrow was still a residential, it's what would be called a middle class area. And of course that has changed. Medicine training has changed with the introduction of the National Health Service in 1948. It altered the whole conception on which general medical practice was based.
But
That's merely repeating what I've already
Yeah.
said.
I ask you, how did you come to Harrow? Any particular reason? Just
No,
personal-
no particular reason. Just an opportunity offered. There was a vacancy here. So there was a vacancy in a practice which carried with it a hospital appointment.
Yeah.
And that interested me, and it meant when I came to Harrow, because I had worked in hospitals, various hospitals prior to settling in Bankers, and when I came here, what was I going to say?
Saying why you came to Harrow? Was it because you had the hospital appointment?
Oh yes, that was the attraction really, that meant in combining general medical practice with a hospital appointment made it more satisfying. So of course I spent 40 years discharging the job of consultant anaesthetist at Harrow Hospital and other hospitals in the district. So I had a finger in everybody. And I had a small private practice in Harleston. So I was heavily engaged.
Can I just ask you a few things then on your
Well,
Jewish connection? You were at St John's, where was it, did you say before?
I was at St John, prior to that in my boyhood, of course. When I lived at home with my parents, we belonged to the United Synagogue. And without going into details, I then became a member of the Liberal at St John's Wood, and then here.
And you knew what Lily Montague and Matic and people like that?
Yes, just, yes, yes. And he was the great supporter, one of the Glucksteins.
Yes, so Louis Gluckstein, yes. Brilliant, yes.
That's right, I knew. In fact, I played against him in a bridge tournament on a cruise that I did on board the Canberra. Played against he and his wife in the finals of a bridge tournament. But I knew him, of course, from the synagogue. And then, of course, there it is. I had a little time for the synagogue. And I wasn't one of these enthusiastic go-getters, do-gooders, so to speak. I just did my job and so somehow had to be spent resting and some little leisure. And that's that. And I think that really covers the story. I mean, you can go on asking 100,000 questions, but I would prefer that you...
I would just like to know, I suppose it's an Alex, when did you join Rossford and Pinner?
When did I join?
2 years ago, wasn't it? Right.
The records are there, it would be 5, 6 or 7 years or something,
Yeah.
I can't remember.
And just found,
I can't remember.
have you been married? Can I ask?
Yes, yes,
Wife?
yes.
No.
The divorce, and I have a daughter aged 20 who is at present at the medical school at the Royal Free Hospital. So I had a young daughter, it's quite ill as you went to. And there it is.
I would like to ask something about little bit about your parents, if you came from, you don't want to.
Yes, I'm proud of my parents.
Say a word a little about them.
Uh,
What did your father do?
No, my father settled in this country and my mother from Austria about 1880, something like that. But 1890 he was in business.
Doing what?
He was a jeweler, as my grandfather was before him. My grandfather was a jeweler in Austria, I think, Vienna, or nearby, and my father's a jeweler. And that's it. And,
They were notably religious or...
yes, a sensibly orthodox home and atmosphere. So it was a kosher atmosphere.
Brothers and sisters did you have?
I had twin sisters 6 years older than myself. They're now deceased, I feel. And I had a brother 6 years junior to myself. And he died too some few years ago. So I'm really the only one remaining of that generation.
Yes.
Uncles, aunts, cousins and so on. Largely passed on and so on. There we are. The last of the breed.
The name Nelson, that doesn't sound Austrian. Did that get changed?
Nelkin, N-E-L-K-E-N.
Right.
Nelkin was the name. I changed it for professional purposes. I regret that I changed it now, but at the time, we're going back many years, over 60 years, and I found, or I thought I found, might have been hypersensitive, I don't think so. I found there was an undercurrent of anti-Semitism. It was not strident, it was not forcibly explicit, it was there in a restrained manner. So when it came to making decisions about appointments, I felt that the balance was there, and that was it.
So you changed
So I changed, I regret. However, it's so very few people today hear the names to which they were born, they've all changed. So many of them have changed. You just work them out, you know. When you come across somebody called Mr. King, you know he must have been Kerry.
What was your mother's name?
And when you come across Mr. Green, well, he might have been Greenhofer or something like that. There we are. Now, can we leave it at that? We can go on. I mean, you're a really good question. I want you to get me on the button. We had a good reputation. We were very highly thought on these fields, and there we were. Honestly, we liked them. I endowed a bed at the Florence Nightingale Home as it once was the Florence Nightingale Home, Nightingale Lane, the other side of London. So some few years ago I endowed a bed in memory of my father and mother. That was about the one good point in my favour. Other than that, I have supported Jewish causes, but I've not been an active worker. All right?
Thank you.
There you
No, very good.
always going back. Before the Americans came, it doesn't as they did in the Second World War, you had the Russians. So, 1960 was a submarine, German submarine, so we were very deep in this country. We wanted to peace talks with Germany in the same way that France did. And I was called up for military examination in March. Instead of waiting until May, they were so sure of men. And I came up for military examination to present myself to the group for the medical board, routine conscription. And there I went up to the age of not yet 18, examined by the medical board in the usual way, and then taken to a guest occupied by the chairman of the recruiting board. And he shuffled his paper. And I noticed that he was a kind-looking man. Rotund, short rotund, nice rosy cheeks and his face, and a kind brown eye, and he looked a very fiery sort of man. He shuffled his paper. He said, I believe you're a medical student. I said, yes. Well, how far have you gone? And actually, it was a very secret. About 6 months' time, and that's what it is. He said, well, I'm going to be very interested. Will be much use to us if you are qualified as an infantry. That took us down through May till November to about
You're on the system. So you escaped being called up for the first
and
time.
I was on the schedule to come to probation service after having taken something I would become probation service again. The arrangements created a certain Lieutenant medical for 6 months, and you were put on destroyers. We had a lot of ships. It was short of the medical. So we took young students. Spent 6 months on a small destroyer. And then they came back to the studies. Very thick to go in that level. The training is a station service. But that was this kindly chairman of the doctor who took this view. He could quite easily, with no reason why I shouldn't have got joined the army physically. But he put me back for 6 months.
Escaped in the First World War, but you served as a medical officer?
And that made a big
Second.
difference. I could leave. So I'd been called up by a leg. I was examining
Mm.
And I went around to the army. About 6 weeks training.
Mm.
Found myself out in some mine in France,
Mm.
where the average prospect for longevity was about 3 weeks.
Yes.
So I had to pray for the
You escaped, but you served as a medical officer in the Second World War, not active. So it's all good. Just go to a local something based locally in Harrow or something.
I was invited to become civilian medical officer to a small Air Force unit that was based in Hamilton. Have a service medical officer.
See.
I was asked to do it. During sort of army which was with them, was a wreck. And some little while later, I think we'd like to put this in. It's not discredited. So I was appointed civilian doctor to this civilian in giving away any internal secrets. It was a civilian we need to say and then some shortly months later, or even less than that, I was approached by an anti-aircraft unit, which is based in the brigade that was commanded by a brigadier. And he wanted a civilian medical officer for the same reason. He wasn't big enough a unit. Anti-aircraft unit that would require 100 infantry or battalion. So I was asked by this. I had a figure which continued it with a general practice. I continued as an anaesthetist at the hospital because that's why I happened to be still here because the medical profession is designated to select some medical courses, some winter,
Yeah.
and maybe other things like that. And I was then, of course, about 40 months in the battle and I was left behind again because the anaesthetists were required at the hospital, both the civilian personnel and a certain number of war casualties in the So I spent a busy life doing that, plus such duties as I was called upon to observe, to discharge, in connection with the small Air Force unit, and similarly in connection with the Army. And in addition to that, I shared the command of the Central First Aid Post in Harrow. So one was involved in the war, but not that much. But you didn't have to go up in front, we got there and looked after us here. We were bombed and where were you during the war?
I was brought up in the Midlands.
Yeah, so we respected that.
Yes.
It's not common here.
No, Leamington.
But we were bombed here, not that we were not as bad as
Central.
the city was.
Mm.
Incident for right away to the first aid post to keep the capital. So it's been a busy life. Whether it's of interest to you, I don't know.
Little bit. All right. Thank you very much. I'll leave it. Just having taken photographs of your parents, do you think that you could tell me the names of your first names of your parents?
Well, I cannot remember from how my mother the family of the
Just your first names?
George.
Your father's name was also?
So my father,
Yeah.
he was, he was 10 years.
Well, that's a good Austrian name, yes. And Himmelmark and your mother's first name. Rosa. Right, yes. Right. Okay. And your daughter's name was the first? Tanya.
Remained and Austria in that time was based on a rural life. The King of Francis Joseph was very tolerant and decent to the Jewish people. It wasn't good Protestant. And one of my uncle on my mother's side went into the Austrian army as a career.
Unusual,
It was a bit unusual, but they did it. And he of course fought against it in the First World War. And he reached the, when the war started, he was a major, and he reached the rank of a colonel. But perhaps we don't put that in. Perhaps we don't put that in because it makes one anti-British. Leave that out.
It's just history.
Leave
I
that
think
out,
it's...
please.
Dr. Nelson was also asked whether it was difficult for him to become a medical student, and he said there was no problem. His father was, who was a jeweler, was well off, and it was relatively easy in those days. You just needed enough money. There wasn't the competition as there is now. He started for a year at University College doing the scientific studies, and then got a treasurer's scholarship to the hospital. As to why he chose to become a medical student, he just said it was something he wanted to do as a boy. His daughter was also taking medicine, although he hadn't encouraged her to do so. He married late in his life and was single during the Second World War, when he was a civilian medical officer to the forces, as well as continuing his private practice. He agreed that copyright in this material should reside with the project, and that the material could be made available by the project for their use. As will be heard at the beginning of the interview, he was reluctant to say anything much about his personal details, but subsequently, when the interview proper had been finished, he talked further about his views on medicine and his medical experiences. He had studied anesthetics as a young man, and he found considerable professional satisfaction in being an anaesthetist during operations, and having a reputation such that he was requested as the anaesthetist by various surgeons. He didn't reach consultant status, but was in fact treated as an honorary consultant, although having the rank of senior medical officer at the Harrow Hospital.